hardest thing you've ever had to keep secret as a kid. When I was about 9, I carried a secret that felt heavier than anything I'd ever imagined a kid could hold. Not because it was dramatic in the cinematic sense, no kidnappings, no crime syndicates, but because it sat between me and the rest of my life like a silence that swallowed everything. It was the kind of secret you don't tell anyone because you learn really quickly that telling will break more than just your voice. My mom worked nights then. She was a nurse who picked up extra shifts so we could keep the house, and the neighborhood we lived in had more broken porches than streetlights. My dad left before I was old enough to remember the sound of his laugh in the kitchen. The adults in my life were quieter than other families' adults. They used soft jokes where other parents use loud comforts. I learned early that people protect each other with tone, and that sometimes protection sounds a lot like avoidance. The secret started small. A late night knock, hushed voices, the creak of the back door. One winter evening I woke up because the house wasn't breathing the way it usually did. The hallway light was on. I padded down the stairs and froze at the bottom step. There was my mom, at the kitchen table, both hands wrapped around a single mug. She wasn't crying exactly, but her shoulders were hunched like she was carrying the world in her lap. Across from her sat a man I'd met before at holidays, Uncle Rob, my mom's brother. That night he had a look that wasn't the jokey, sloppy grin I associated with family. He looked sharp, and when he talked, he spoke very quietly. Not to keep it from me, I don't think, but because the words were brittle and sharp, and if he said them loud, they might snap. He said a name I'd never heard in connection with our family. We can't keep hiding the money problem. The landlord is calling every week. My mom said, I know, and then she put her head in her hands. The word eviction slipped out like a defeated breath. The more they talked, the more I realized they were not only worried about the immediate rent, late bills, but about things that adults never bothered to explain to kids. Job insecurity, medical debt, calls from people who used to be friends and now asked for favors. I shouldn't have understood, but I did. I understood because the silence afterward felt like a cliff. After that night, I watched the world with a new attentiveness. I learned the pattern of worry. I learned that my mom would rehearse the exact words she'd give the landlord, that she'd microwave food until it tasted safe, that she'd write and rip up job applications and then sit at the table and stare at the phone until it felt like the phone should have rung already. I learned that we couldn't sign up for anything with a fee. I learned that friends' birthday parties at roller rinks were expensive in a way my mom's "we'll see" meant never. It morphed from "we're tight on money" into something bigger and uglier. She started hiding things from the mail. If a letter came from some government office, it would be pulled out of the box and folded into the lining of the coat closet. If a caller asked to speak to my mom about accounts, she'd pretend she was cooking and slip the phone into her apron and bite her lip. I asked once, casually, the way kids ask what's for dinner, "Is everything okay?" She smiled, practiced, the smile that doesn't reach the eyes, and said, "Don't worry, champ, we'll be fine." I swallowed my worry. That's what kids do. We learn which buttons to not press. The real secret, the one that kept me awake and made my stomach a painful knot for months, was that I had to be fine in a different way. My mom would sometimes whisper to me when the house was finally calm and the humidifier hummed like a lullaby, "You can't tell anyone. Not at school, not your friends. We'll be okay if no one knows." That one sentence was a rope tied around my chest. I had to be the kid who could pretend. I had to laugh when classmates bragged about new phones. I had to say that's cool when someone described a vacation. I learned to craft my face interested, not envious, amused, not resentful. There were practical rules too. Don't stay after school for clubs that cost money. Don't invite anyone over unless mom says. When classmates asked why I never went to birthday parties, I said my family liked quiet weekends. When someone offered to share their fries, I learned to accept them with a grateful smile and then carve a mental notch in the memory of what it tasted like. Advantage and pity, both at once. Keeping the secret warped how I felt about honesty. I told myself daily that I was protecting my mom by not speaking. And there were moments, small mercies, where the silence actually worked. When word got around that our family was doing okay, a generous neighbor dropped off canned soup with a post-it that said, "For you." Once, when I pretended that we didn't notice the cracks in the ceiling, a friend's father offered to fix our leaky faucet after school and did it like a quiet saint. In those spaces, the secret felt noble, an adult-level sacrifice I was making. I took on the shame the way some kids take on chores. It became mine because I believed owning it would shield the ones I loved. But over time, the secret ate space in my life. It made me small in conversations so others could be big. It made me practice smiles like rehearsing lines. I missed out on things because I was always calculating, can we afford this? Will this make mom panic? Should I pretend I have the confidence to say yes? The mental bookkeeping piled up.